just ask you how caucus is going. What's the mood been like over the last couple of days?
It's been fantastic. You know, we have not seen each other as a group since June. We've all had this wonderful time reconnecting with our constituents, some cases our families and our friends. For myself, all the way out in Vancouver Island, Couch and Malahat Langford, I have been to all kinds of community events. And these days, when we come here in Montreal gathering together, has been an opportunity for us to share. And in some cases, we've found some common themes about, oh, your constituents feel strongly about this issue, so do mine. And it's a real opportunity for us to come together, share what we've been hearing directly on the ground from our respective ridings, but more importantly, to come together and figure out what are we going to put on offer for people in this fall session. How is the NDP going to take those very real concerns, the fears of people in our ridings that we represent, and how are we going to translate that into action? So I really like how this has been going. It's been off to a great start. As chair, I couldn't be prouder of this caucus and the strengths that they always bring to the table.
You're no longer going to have this supply and confidence agreement, and you're no longer going to be negotiating with the government.
Yeah.
What sort of tools are you going to be using in this upcoming session to fight for Canadians?
Well, you know, we're going to go back to a situation that was similar in the 43rd Parliament from 2019 until 2021. That Parliament, of course, operated during the worst of COVID. But again, we approached every single one of the big votes on a case-by-case basis. And I think, as you heard Jagmeet Singh say very clearly yesterday and again today, we're going to approach each issue on a case-by-case basis. We're going to value its merits, but we are always going to be making our determinations based on whether it is in the interests of Canadians. That's going to be our guiding star in all of this.
We're going to see lots of like these private members' bills, like, you know, that's how Obamacare, and you got your ideas out on that. Are we going to see lots of motions and stuff like that? Are those going to be the vehicles where you sort of try and move the needle now that you don't have an agreement to negotiate?
Well, for me personally, I have always admired private members' bills as a tool of showing Canadians what we would put on offer if we were in government. So I have, 7 private members' bills to my name. I recently had a national brain injury strategy passed unanimously in the House of Commons. We've had all kinds of really amazing legislative ideas put on the table by hardworking MPs. And I think if you look at our caucus and compare us to Conservatives and to Liberals, on an MP level, we are the most productive caucus that you've ever seen in terms of putting forward legislative ideas. I am very proud of every single one of the private members' bills that our caucus members have put forward because, again, we are putting something on offer to Canadians as an idea of the things that we could pursue if we were elected into federal government.
What do you think the path forward is for your party to beat Pierre Poilievre?
Again, we have to show Canadians that Pierre Poilievre is a politician who has had 20 years of experience in the House of Commons. He is not a new face. He was a prominent part of the former Harper government, and he did, and in that time, what Conservative governments have always done, whether in Ottawa or in provincial capitals, which is cut the things that vulnerable Canadians depend on. So we are going to show that. We've got lots of historical evidence, and we're going to show that despite all of the words coming out of his mouth, he is the same Conservative he has always been.
You're a BC MP. There's a BC provincial election coming up, one in Saskatchewan,
Yep.
New Brunswick. There's a bunch. So how does that play in with your MPs in deciding when to trigger a federal election? Will you try to avoid overlapping with a provincial election?
Look, for us, we try to stay out of provincial politics. They are dealing with very different issues than we are. I'm very cognizant that my own province of BC is going through an election, but again, I was elected by the people of Couch and Malahat Langford to look after federal issues. So we have to do our work as a federal party, looking at federal issues in the House of Commons. I am not going to allow myself to be distracted by what's happening in provincial politics because, again, my constituents are expecting me to look after issues that are of federal importance, and my job as an opposition MP is to keep the federal government to account. So that will be my guiding star.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Heather next on Gaza.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Sure.
Heads up.
Yesterday, Melanie Joly said that over the summer she suspended 30 export permits for trade in military goods with Israel. She's done that to ask more questions. Does this satisfy your concerns of meeting Canada's international obligations?
No, it absolutely does not meet my concerns. What the minister said yesterday is that she would suspend, first of all, not cancel. We've seen her lie to Canadians before. This is the same government that suspended arms sales to Saudi Arabia and then reinstated them quietly a couple months later. And frankly, we're at almost a year since October 7th, and for her to take months and months and months for her to take action is appalling. You know, she promised Canadians in January that she had stopped that she had stopped weapons going to Israel, and then again in March. And the fact that she's now promising it again and is suspending it is appalling, that this is happening on the backs of more than 40,000 Palestinians having died. You know, the actions of this government is not making it more likely that the hostages will be released. It is not making life safer for Israelis or Palestinians, and it is appalling that it has taken her so long.
At the same time, those are contracts with Canadian companies that give jobs to workers that you hope are going to vote for you, especially in Ontario. Mm-hmm. How do you reconcile the two? How do you tell them that they have to suffer for that?
Listen, we've worked with labor unions. We've worked with folks on this issue for a very, very long time. And workers should not have to contribute to a plausible genocide in order to put food on the table for their families. Those workers need to be protected. We need to make sure that there are jobs for them. But we have laws in this country, and we adhere to international laws, or we certainly should. The Arms Trade Treaty is very clear. We should not be shipping any sort of military goods to any country that could be using them in the use of in the action of a genocide. That's clear. The Arms Trade Treaty is very, very clear. This government is breaking the law.
Thank you very much.
Can I just ask you one question about the phrasing of the conflict? We heard from Singh, if I heard him correctly, he's calling this a genocide now. You're calling it a plausible genocide. Is that distinction important?
No, you know, it's not. What we know is that innocent people are dying by the tens of thousands. Canadians from coast to coast to coast have been asking for the government to do more, have been asking for the government to live up to Canadian values of justice, of peace building. Like, where are we as a country? How are we still failing to adhere? You know, we were the architects of the international criminal justice system.
But is it
Canada.
A genocide or a plausible genocide?
Well, in my opinion, it is a genocide. The criminal courts are coming with a ruling on that in the coming days and months. But my goodness, Canada needs to be doing so much more. Canadians expect so much more from our government.
I don't think you've commented on the end of the deal with the Liberals.
Last question.
Pardon me?
I don't think we've heard you about the end of the deal with the Liberals. How are you feeling about that?
You know, I'm as a New Democrat, I'm incredibly proud of the things that we were able to get for Canadians, the things like dental care, the things like a pharmacare framework. The anti-scab legislation, I think, is a key piece of what we were able to accomplish. I'm proud of those things. I do think, though, that this government has shown themselves to not be fighting for Canadians, and so it is time for that deal to be over.
Thanks,
really
everyone.
quickly on
Sorry,
general
we
dynamics,
pulled last
you
question
want,
like 3 times.
you
Sorry.
want the government to cancel those export permits. Okay.
Bonjour, Monsieur Noël.
Dites-moi donc, j'aimerais ça comprendre un peu. Parce que tout à l'heure, vous avez annoncé avec M. Singh que vous êtes parti sur d'autres questions, mais je suis intéressé de voir comment vous allez procéder pour être capable d'empêcher les géants de l'immobilier d'acheter du logement abordable pour les transformer en appartements. Vous fait ça comment?
Bien, premièrement, c'est que nous autres, au NPD, on réalise qu'il y a une crise du logement qui est vraiment intense. Les gens souffrent. Je le vois dans Rosemont-Petite-Patrie, je le vois dans Verdun. Les gens sont obligés de déménager parce que le prix des loyers vraiment augmente puis explose depuis des années. Ce qu'on s'est rendu compte, c'est qu'une des manières de ralentir cette explosion-là du prix des loyers, c'est de faire en sorte de changer la logique entre Est-ce que c'est un investissement qui doit générer des profits ou c'est un droit fondamental d'avoir un toit? C'est quelque chose que tout le monde devrait avoir. Et ce qu'on s'est rendu compte également, c'est que dans les années 90, il y avait à peu près aucun de ces géants de l'immobilier qui possédait du logement, qui possédait des dizaines, des centaines de portes. Aujourd'hui, c'est 20% du parc immobilier qui est possédé par ces grandes corporations-là, ces grandes compagnies-là. Donc, ce qu'on veut, nous, c'est de s'asseoir avec les experts, avec les gens qui connaissent bien ça, de regarder nos lois fiscales et de faire en sorte d'interdire, de bannir l'achat de logements abordables par ces grands géants de l'immobilier. Ça va se faire par le changement de fiscalité, mais également par les prêts qui sont donnés par la Société canadienne d'habitation et de logement.
Vous faites un lien avec l'augmentation de ce genre de compagnies qui ont des logements et l'augmentation des prix. Il y a un lien direct ou c'est juste un lien que vous imaginez?
Non, il y a un lien entre les deux, puis on l'a vu. On a vu que quand le moteur de l'investissement, c'est la recherche du profit immédiat, bien, on voit des rénovictions, on voit des gens qui sont mis à la rue, on voit des gens qui sont forcés de déménager parce qu'ils sont plus capables de se payer le loyer. Moi, je le vois dans Verdun, beaucoup de gens qui me disent « M. Boulerice, vous étiez mon député avant. » Mais ils ont dû quitter les quartiers centraux parce que c'est plus abordable maintenant. Ils sont obligés de s'exiler puis d'aller ailleurs. C'est extrêmement malheureux, ça. Les gens vivent beaucoup de stress puis d'anxiété. Et le fait d'avoir ces grands géants de l'immobilier qui font des achats massifs de centaines de portes comme ça contribue au phénomène. L'autre chose, c'est qu'on n'a pas assez de logements hors marché, qui sont des coopératives de logements sociaux communautaires abordables. Alors, on veut travailler sur les deux plans. Alors là, ce qu'on a annoncé aujourd'hui, c'est qu'on veut travailler justement sur le plan de ces grandes firmes d'investissement, ces grandes compagnies-là, qui ne s'intéressent pas au monde, ils ne s'intéressent pas à leurs locataires. S'ils ne payent pas assez, bien, ils iront ailleurs, c'est tout. On veut mettre fin à ça.
Je comprends le principe. C'est quoi le mécanisme pour arriver à ça? C'est ça que je comprends.
Le mécanisme, ça va être des possibilités de regarder quel est le revenu des gens par rapport au loyer qu'ils vont payer. Il y a la règle du 30 ne pas dépasser 30 du revenu pour qu'un loyer soit considéré comme abordable. Quand on va évaluer la possibilité de faire l'achat, l'acquisition de dizaines, voire de centaines de portes, on va regarder quelle est la situation de ce bâtiment-là, puis on va changer les lois fiscales pour être capable de l'interdire. Le projet de loi, il n'est pas encore rédigé. On va s'asseoir avec les gens qui connaissent bien ça, avec les rédacteurs législatifs au Parlement, avec les experts du logement, puis on va arriver avec un projet de loi cet automne qui va répondre aux besoons des gens.
I have a similar question about mechanisms. Mr. Singh, a few times this week, has said the NDP wants to cap the price of key groceries like bread.
Yeah.
There's lots of types of bread. Like, how do you fix the price of bread?
I don't want to go into too much details, but it's possible to do it. If you look at France, the Macron government, which is not a left-wing government, made sure to control the prices of 5,000 items in the grocery stores in France. So it's possible to do it. It needs some political will. And Kamala Harris is proposing something that is similar in the United States. So we are pushing the same kind of ideas.
Just on housing, can we ask you about the mechanism you're going to use to prevent big corporations from buying up affordable housing?
No, we are going to use, the fiscal legislation that is already there that will have an impact on their housing capacity for a big investment fund to buy, dozens of doors or hundreds of doors. And we will look at the capacity to pay of the people, the renters of those places. And if it's going to hurt them, it's going to be forbidden. It's going to be...
Is that even legal to do? Can you tell a corporation you cannot buy this property if someone's willing to sell it?
If you change the minding of what is housing for Canadians, it's a fundamental right. It's not something that is only for profit. This is something that we need to change. This is the mentality that we want to provide. I was talking a little bit earlier about out-of-market housing. We are at 3% in Canada. If you look at some countries in Europe, it's 10%, 20%. This is the direction and the goal that we want to achieve. And part of the problem is those big giants, big corporations that are buying thousands of doors just to make more profit rapidly. And it's hurting people. So yes, we will make legislation that will probably shock the way we see housing in this country, but it's a necessity.
But but legally, if I want to sell something to someone, how can you stop me from transferring my property if someone's willing to pay the price?
Yeah, we have already laws in legislation in Canada that forbid certain type of transaction in financial transaction. We will add that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.